to It's Your Life, Own It, Self-Awareness, Self-Development, Self-Mastery. My name is Marisa Blumendarn, and I am your host. And like every other time, I am so excited to be with you today. We are at the top of the week, and we can do so many things with this week as we're at the top. Be strategic and intentional. We've been talking about this month about leadership stories, telling stories, how you tell stories to inspire others. And so I'm not going to go into it because you know how I can get. I'm going to let my people take center stage and own it with me this morning is, if I can find the mouse, Teresa Palmer, Dr. Stephanie E. Reed, Nathaniel X. Ross, Tiffany Barra, Jacqueline Lulu Brown. Welcome. We are in the house and the weather has changed in the month of March. We have sprung forward. And so I hope over there in the mainland that you guys are having some good temperatures, no more snow or all that craziness that's been going on. How's everybody in the room?
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Oh, I love it. Y'all sound so good. Listen, we've been talking about leadership and storytelling, and this is a self-development platform. We're talking about It's Your Life, Own It. But we're talking about your life, your career, your business, and how you're showing up. I always say, whether it's a formal title or informal title, we are always leading someone. And how are we leading with our stories, our personal being transparent personally with those that we have the ability to influence and inspire? And so we were backstage talking about leadership. We were talking about storytelling and all that other good stuff. Teresa, as we cultivate and think about that in our mind, because these are things that we don't consciously think about. We hear like a Tony Robbins and I can't think of you just hear all these inspirational speakers and motivators. But when it comes to us ourselves, do we think of ourselves in that capacity? And that's what these conversations are really all about, is about taking ownership of some of the things that we see that are dynamic that we can actually be owning for ourselves. And so one of this is telling stories and inspiring others. So Teresa, start us off, because you are always starting us off.
I always like starting off. Welcome everybody who's joining us and those who will be listening later. I think it all comes down to authenticity. And that's the story that you're telling yourself. Is that who you are, or is that the story that you believe that others want to hear or see? And when we listen to a lot of inspirational leaders, everybody's got a different style. And if we try to mimic somebody else's style, we're not being authentic. So everybody has their own inner mechanism of who they are and their authentic self. And I think that's also part of the vulnerability. Are you able to show that? And we had talked in the back about sometimes leaders start off one way, they go another way. They seem to be vulnerable and then they're not. Well, I think that's because they don't want to show who they really are. Sometimes we fear that, but a lot of times that's needed. And the second thing too is when you're telling a story, there has to be something in it for the people, whether it's one person, 5 people, or 1 million people. They could resonate and get something out of that story. I think too, we tend to think, and that's the way we're built as humans, we tend to think it's about us, but it's not about us. It's about them. And it's about the people that we serve. So we need to also always be aware of that when we're sharing a personal story, people don't want to hear your life unless you're a celebrity, because then you've got dirt, you've got gossip, you've got something that they could dig their teeth into. And it's not any substance. It's just, so-and-so did this in Hollywood or whatever. But for normal, everyday people like us, people don't want to hear our stories. They want to hear what we did or a story that we conveyed. Like I convey a lot of patient stories about things that they could be helped with. Somebody went through this, or I went through this, and now this is how I could help you. And that's what gives us the credibility. not the screaming, the shouting, or telling people that we're leaders. It's all about how we come to people and how we serve people. And we have to do that in an authentic way. And I think there's so much buzz out there that, anybody could be visible, but visible doesn't mean you're going to be successful. Visible just means that you had the ways and means, or maybe you don't have the means and you went in debt to get yourself visible because you thought that that was going to lead to success. And if that were true, everybody would be successful. But not everybody is successful. It takes a lot of our own inside work, being authentic, being who we are, giving people stories that could help them, and knowing that it's not about us, it's about them.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you said it. You know, people need to hear hope. Our stories are designed to give them hope, and to inspire them, and to give them that. And it's very important for us to, and you hit something really really good, and the fact that is, if someone is sharing a story, and they're sharing it for inspiration, and they've done it, uh, more so to be seen in the sense of on a stage or as a part of a process, and not from a genuine place of sharing. That's when they leave that they can leave that moment and not be connected with it themselves. The way that you're connected with them it yourself is where you're really talking from a place of passion and a place of intent to make impact and influence, and not impact and influence for self gain, but impact and influence for the hearer, the one that's going to be receiving the message. Yeah, and I would say too, they do want to hear our stories. Not everyone, but some people do want to hear our stories, because our stories really speak from our authenticity. They really speak from the heart. If we're really, really willing to keep it real with people, they see what we have gone through, especially if you've gone through something that someone can relate to. The loss of a child, the loss of a parent. Those kind of stories, they can say, oh, well, they went through that too. We have one of our honorees who lost her son. And she shares and speaks from that place of being able to share that story and to help others to have hope and to realize that there is life and moving forward, that it is a process. Therefore, we can develop compassion and empathy for others and to help them to journey along the way. It is a huge responsibility in that leadership role. And it is also, too, an accountability for our own character as leaders. I'm going to move over to Dr. Reed. And Dr. Reed, share with us your thought, because Teresa, you said something that was very important. This is about the hearer. This is about it's not about ourselves. There comes a place where it's about the other people in our lives that we want to help and to give them inspiration. So you said something that's very, very important. It is about the people that are hearing the stories. Dr. Reed, share with us your insight. Chime right on in. Because, there's so many things, because I'm thinking while Teresa's talking, I'm thinking about, when she said that people cut off immediately, they sell their story, but then they're no longer connected or reachable. I'm thinking about, they need healing. And immediately, as I'm thinking about healing, I'm thinking about you, and I'm saying, well, we can dive right on to the healing part, because when you're healed, you own all of that. You're not afraid to continue in the conversation and to be even more transparent because you've already been healed. Dr. Reed, chime on in. You come off mute.
I said, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Teresa, you hit on so many wonderful points. I definitely didn't want to overlap. I just want to add on to it. And I think what I would add to the conversation is the story. Well, first of all, I have a new YouTube channel. It's called The Pivot Coach, helping women pivot from their uncomfortable selves into a life of purpose the way God called us to be. And my last video post was about telling your story. Are you telling your story for edification of the other person, like you said, Teresa, or are you airing your dirty laundry? Because one of the biggest ways that we tell a story is that we write a book. Everybody has a book inside. And if your book is not going to be something that's going to be helpful to someone else, don't dump on society your dirty laundry, because we don't need it. We have too much. And the stories that I am so passionate about telling are the ones that have overcome. I had a client yesterday, and she would talk, or not yesterday, but Friday. She was sharing her story about loss, and she said she just couldn't get over it. And I said, well, let me share this story with you. In 2014, I gave birth to a beautiful little girl named Melody, and through a medical mistake, she died. When she died, I used to say I died. That was my trauma story. That was a story connected to that story. And I said to her, you know what? You'll get to a point where you can extract the wisdom out of your story and leave the pain. It's the wisdom part that you've maintained is the part that you should share. And so the part that I share is, you know, my daughter passed away. I was traumatized. I use the word the big T trauma. And I also say that everybody's here for a purpose. Sometimes your purpose might take 80 years. Sometimes it might take 75 years. Sometimes it may take, 90 years. My daughter's purpose only needed to happen for 9 hours and 20 minutes because her purpose was to change me so I could impact the world. That's a story, right? I've extracted the wisdom. I left the pain. And they go, oh my God, you lost your daughter. That was so sad. I said, I'm not sad about it. I'm grateful for the experience. I've locked into the meaning of it, and I can move on and help someone else. And we have a lot of stories where we have been the big T traumatized, but the key is the part or the perspective of the story is the healed version of it. And the healed version can take you 3 minutes to share. It doesn't take a 25-minute conversation because you need that quick impact to go, wow, if that can happen to you, I know I'm good. That's the power of leadership in a story. You extract the wisdom, you leave the pain aside, and you keep it moving because you have a gazillion stories that you can resonate with someone. And one story might not impact one person, but it could impact another. So you have to have an arsenal of stories to use them effectively for the people situationally as they show up to you. And you can only do that if you were healed to a degree that you no longer are seething in your big T, the trauma. And that's what I would leave about stories. Absolutely the authenticity, but definitely extract the wisdom, leave the pain so you can be able to have your toolbox of support systems for people who are coming into you. And that's leadership, being ready for whoever shows up. Well, whatever story that you have that you've been healed through, that will resonate with them within 3 minutes.
Yeah, in that moment. Sometimes it's a one-on-one moment, and sometimes you're standing in front of a crowd. And so very, very powerful, Dr. Reed, excellent viewpoint, and totally agree with that. Is focus on the victory. And I've done that myself, not the same words you use, but I always focus on what can I take away that I can gain from this, what's going to improve me, what's going to be better for me. So totally agree with that. We're going to let the gentleman go. He's the only man in the room. I know that Jeffrey had another appointment today, and so we love you, Jeffrey. Dr. Berger. So Nathaniel, let us know your incredible thoughts on this.
Well, my thoughts around, and listening to Teresa and Dr. Reed, we fundamentally, I want to make a distinction. And the distinction on what's been said is that from a fundamental standpoint, we are telling the never-ending story. We're always telling a story. And we should be living the story that we're telling so that authenticity comes through in telling the story. And I had an event I went to this past an event that I went to, and a gentleman walked up to me and he said, "Thank you so much for the motivation and inspiration that you give me." And I'm standing there looking at him like a deer in the headlights because I have no idea what this guy is talking about. But I'm listening to him as he engages in conversation with me, and he's telling me he created a business based off something I said. He heard me say to someone else. And basically all I said to the other person was, whatever it is that you believe in, I'm going to follow your money and I'm going to follow your time. And that tells me what you believe in. That tells me what your passion is. And he overheard that. And he took it to heart. And two of the guys created a business based around that. And he said, it really resonated with me. So therefore, I created this business. And in creating this business, a large part of the proceeds are to go to charity. And I'm like, wow. But I had no idea that he even heard me say it, right? So whenever we're speaking, we are always creating or we're destroying. So we have to be conscious all the time of what's coming out of our mouths, what story are we living, what story are we sharing? Because that's where the processional effect comes from. Anything that we say and do, it's going to processionally roll out to sea. It's going to roll around the world. So we just have to be very, as leaders, we have to be very attentive to what we're saying, what we're doing.
Yeah, and I always say this, is that we are leaders first of ourselves and then of others. So it is so important what you said. And I know that between Tiffany and Lulu, in one of those conversations, Friday and Saturday, that we talked about how people are watching us, that we may never know who we're influencing. I had a woman share with me recently, "I've been watching you." And I'm like, and I hear that over and over and over again. And if I look at stats, if I look at numbers, whether it's YouTube platform, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Facebook, whether it's wherever, if you look at those stats, you wouldn't think that people are watching you. It's like, oh, those numbers are so low. But I got a glimpse the other day. So like over 100 and something people had watched one of our lives on Facebook. Well, I don't see those numbers on YouTube or whatever. But I say this to say is that whether you choose to be a leader or not, it doesn't matter. You're a leader. And people, I know I said this, you're sitting and you're eating dinner somewhere and if you say something that resonates to someone, they're all ears. And now you don't know that someone's listening to your conversation, but you just naturally being yourself and saying this and that and that and this, and you're talking about what you've been doing and all this other stuff. And those people are like writing, like I'm always writing because see, I got a notepad. So when you see me down here looking down or anything, it's me with this pen taking notes. And I'm telling you that people are listening. They're either being inspired by you. And sometimes when people are in conflict with you, it has nothing to do with you said something adverse or you said something negative. It's just where they are in their journey, that they may not be ready to hear. They may have needed to hear what you had to say, but spiritually, emotionally, mentally, they may not have been ready. And that's okay, because what you're saying can hold and sit for a minute. And then eventually they'll catch up with that message. Trust me, I have been there, because I remember, and then I'm going to digress and let Tiffany and Lulu speak. But I can remember taking my daughter to daycare, and they were handing out all this information about witches. And I was just like, yeah, they were handing, because it was a Christian school. And I remember going up there and saying, listen, I don't know why they have a problem with Halloween, blah, 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 blah. And lo and behold, before celebrate Halloween. So, guess what? Sometimes messaging comes and we feel like it's not for us. But I'm going to say to you, just put it on pause for a minute and wait until the appointed time. And it will begin to resonate with you. And you'll eat humble pie quietly and alone, but you'll eat humble pie and you'll receive the knowledge because now you have come to a place where you're ready to receive it. So I say to you guys, as we're talking about leaders sharing their stories, I want to give the flip side to that and say, hey, those who are hearing the stories, make sure you are open-minded and have a growth mindset so that you can extract, like Dr. Reed said, the wisdom of it, not reject the whole message, but resonate on it and say, was I supposed to get anything out of this or not get anything out of this? Or should I just put it on hold and don't throw the baby out with the bathwater yet. Just hear it, hold on to it, see if it works. If it never works, that's okay. But always have an open mind. And those who feel like you're not leaders, you're probably the biggest leader in the bunch. You're running away from what it is that you've been purposed and called to do, but that's okay. You can do like me. I lead kind of from a distance. So Tiffany, talk to us about this whole thing about, storytelling, inspiring us, because we do it all day. So share, Tiffany.
We really do share our stories all day, every day. And I'm going to just kind of take the perspective of it as a coach, me being in the coaching industry, when I'm sharing my stories, especially because my stories are stories of that physical release of weight and release of, the mental stress and the toxic relationships and things like that. And when I share those stories, I can't be out here. I have to show up in my story, right? I can't be out here eating wrong and not exercising and not doing the things that I shared in my story on how to release weight, or how, I can't be over here in a toxic relationship, right? As you said, everybody's watching us. So when we share our stories, we can't fabricate our stories. We have to really be authentic and true to our stories, right? And when we're sharing those stories, when I was in the office space in corporate, I got reprimanded by my leadership for sharing stories because they felt that the employees would see me as human, right? Because we're all human. And that's the mistake that our corporate leaders make, is not allowing themselves to just be human and share your stories, regardless of what your upper management says. If they're closed off and they don't want to share their stories and be authentic and real, that's why everybody in the office don't like them. That's why, that's why you see everybody running from them and all that kind of stuff. It's because they don't feel safe. And when you share your stories, people start feeling safe with you. And, in corporate, people would come to my office. I was HR. And there's a lot of HR people out there. I'm speaking to y'all, okay? Because there's a lot of HR people out there that want to be robotic and they want to just stick this way. You know what? You're just an employee. No, we're all people. Open yourself up just a little bit and share and be emotionally intelligent, because that's what's missing as well. People aren't emotionally intelligent anymore. I used to see people come past my office, and if they'd be all slunched down and stuff, I'd call, hey, come here. What's going on? What happened? And then they start sharing a little bit of what happened to them in that morning. And sometimes I would have had maybe something similar happen, but yet I showed up to work with a smile on my face, not being all slumped down. And when you share that, hey, I went through something kind of similar, they sit back and they think about it and they're like, wait a second. Well, you showed up okay. Maybe I can show up with that smile on my face as well. So it's just really just walking in your story and just showing up authentic and true. You know, get out of that box, get out of that tunnel, and start being human. That's really my message to all you leaders out there. Start being human.
This is such a topic that we gotta, like I said, we have one more session. We have technology on our side now, and the internet is working, and that's all a beautiful, wonderful thing. So we'll just think about when we go into next week as we close out on this topic, what really powerful you want to leave our audience with, that they could take away with it. And you said, we talk about nature and nurture, environment, and our touchy-feely emotional side. And so that touchy-feely emotional side is critical. And I know that Dr. Reed really understands this and drives home with it. It's critical for us to be affectionate towards one another. In a proper way, depending on the relationships, in a proper way, I'm touchy-feely. I'm going to hug you. I am going to laugh hard with you. And then I know how to shift gears. We got to get back to business. But I am going to go in deep with you because as a nurturer, I care about your spirit, man. I care because if I care as a leader about how you feel emotionally, we will, once we get your emotions in check, my God, you're just going to show up and show out. And then when I show you that I really care about you, seriously care about you, beyond my own agenda as a leader or CEO or the boss or whatever, you get the buy-in. You buy in. You have that perceived, we could call it PLS, perceived leadership support, or perceived organizational support, as we always talk about it. You get committed. You start drinking the Kool-Aid. You start drinking Maurice's Kool-Aid. Say, hey, we can do all things. We ain't like those that shrink back. We are well able to overcome it. You start, and then you're empowered. When we care, when we have that EI, that emotional intelligence that understands that it has a place, that it is needed, it is priceless, it is imperative that we do that, especially today, when you have people who are suffering and feeling like they're alone. They feel like they're alone because no one's touching them. No one's connecting with them. And that's why these stories are important, not for just people who get on grand stages, but for the everyday, what we used to call back in the day, Joe Schmo. Remember that? Joe Schmo? Everyday Joe Schmo needs it. We need to start telling one another our stories and connecting. I'm doing all of this because, Lulu, I'm going to let you close us out from this session because we are on the top of our half hour, and I'm going to try to stay a little bit true to that. And so, Lulu, close us out with your closing thoughts. And team, I'm going to charge you that you think about it, resonate with it. So next week when we come back, we just wow them with some takeaways that they can start transforming their mind, shifting their mindset, and getting in alignment with being empowered. Lulu, take us away.
All right. I took so many notes, just notes. So I'm going to try to bring it all kind of together. And there's a couple of things that you absolutely have to have that everyone is talking about. And that is the emotional intelligence. That is the authenticity. And when we talk about the empathy, what we're really talking about in leadership are those divine feminine principles. And that side, those principles, and it's not just for women. People hear the word feminine and they hear the word divine and they automatically think, oh, she's going religious. Divinity is who you are at your core. It's who God created you to be authentically. It's before the world shaped and molded you into what they think you're supposed to be. So the divine is that part of when you allow yourself to let that burst forth. Believe it or not, that's where genius lies, is down in the divine part of you. And then there's masculine energy and feminine energy. And leaders have learned that having both of those energies and not too much of one and not too much of the other so that they don't become toxic. Those things together are so important. And, you know, I was listening, and as I was taking some notes, and what came to mind is I heard the word wisdom. And, you know, I think one of the greatest stories is the story of Solomon. And he asked, people talk about his wealth and his riches and him building the temple. But Solomon, and for those that don't know, Solomon is a character in the Bible. You'll find him in the Bible, the Quran. You'll find him in the Torah. You'll find him in anything that is remotely spiritual. And I invite people to read, because he wasn't perfect. He wasn't a perfect leader. He made a lot of mistakes. But at his core, what he asked God for was wisdom, knowledge, and a better understanding to lead the people. Those were his words. Lord, give me wisdom, knowledge, and a better understanding of how to lead the people. And I think that's what we have to make sure that we have. Today, we're in this high performance, high-tech leadership, and this is really for our folks that are in leadership in high tech. I think it's a little tougher to tap into that human side when you are at the high C-suite end of technology. But we have to remember that just because someone trains you to be polished, to present, to, push through, remember, that's not the real power. That's just what's on the surface. But what you want is, you don't want the mask. You want the mirror. You want to always be looking and reflecting. Forget about the mask. Look for the mirror, because that authenticity can't be a buzzword. It has to be where we really understand what that means. Not to tell too much, not to be offensive. Because remember, your story in your leadership is very, very sacred. Your stories, because Dr. Reed said stories, those are your strategies to connect and empower your people. And so we want to make sure that we don't lose those components. Your authenticity is definitely your genius and your superpower. And so when we take and put all of that together, we can be real and raw, but from a resilient perspective where people are empowered. And I often say, do you want to be right, or do you want to be effective? And I believe I heard someone talk about, when they talked about success, and you know something, education, that helps to make us successful, diligence, dedication, perseverance, intention. So I will never say that, well, you're not going to be successful, because there are a lot of successful people out there. But my question is, are they effective in what they're doing? Because you can be collecting a lot of money, you can be on stages, and you can be drawing crowds by the thousands. And then the next thing you know, you see them somewhere where they're in some big scandal, or they're being arrested, or, think about all of the leaders that have found themselves, successful leaders that found themselves in scandal. And that's across everywhere. It's not just corporate. That's faith-based religion. So I would just say and encourage everyone to trust your intuition over anybody else's external validation when it comes to sharing your story. Really tap into that, the wisdom, the knowledge, and a better understanding, because know who you're speaking to. Some stories are going to be for a one-on-one, where you do, as Tiffany said, you're going to call that person into your office and you're going to have that conversation, and it's just going to be a one-on-one. And then there's going to be those stories that you speak from experience rather than expectation. We can get caught up in expectation, but speak from the experience and show up whole, not just as the polished, successful person. And when we pull all that together, that's when we're truly, I like to say in our Ascend Her program, I like to say we build empires. We embody truth and we model freedom. But again, we lead with divine authenticity. And so, Marisa, thank you so much for us having an opportunity to have this conversation, because I think that within our storytelling, there is truth in our leadership. We can speak with fire. There's that time when you're ready to fire people up because we have something that we have to accomplish and we have to achieve. But then there's a time when we are speaking our stories from a perspective of rising up in hope. So thank you so much.
That was so good. Everyone, you guys, every week we do this, week after week. And you guys really, really just show up. You pour out. That's a lot. It is a lot of pouring out. And I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you so much for taking time out of your schedules to, and that we care enough, that you guys care enough about the people out there to say, hey, listen, I have a message, of hope that can really, really help you. Teresa talking from the heart. Stephanie talking about wholeness and healing from within. Nathaniel talking about wellness and getting your financial house in order and just being financially responsible. Tiffany, getting your body moving and staying physically fit, mind, spirit, and body. Lulu, you talk about being radical. Me, I'm just out of control and full of a lot of passion and telling people don't worry about being polished, just show up. Own it is to buck the system. Buck the system. Be true to you. We love you so very much. And guys, I love you guys so very much. And I'm just so proud and honored to be here, taking center stage with you all the time and owning it. I'm proud of each and every one of you. Love you so very much. We are out. Have a good day.